Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss how and why Boris Johnson went from a position of being so firmly behind his withdrawal agreement that he forced all Conservative candidates that stood in last December's general election to personally pledge their support for it, or they weren't allowed to stand for the party, to a position where he now says it doesn't make any sense. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, it's quite odd sometimes doing this channel. There are times when the sensational political news goes a bit quiet, and then I'm unsure of which topics would be of most interest to viewers. Then there are times when the political news explodes to the point where I still don't know which ones to do or in which order, because there are too many very, very obvious ones, and where even doing 3 videos a day doesn't seem like enough capacity. This is one of those times. Now, although this particular story was always going to be told, we could have predicted this, in fact we did do a year ago, the Daily Telegraph main headline from Tuesday, I'm going to say, because I don't even know when this video is coming out. So, the Telegraph is a Brexit supporting newspaper, though it doesn't seem to be a no-deal Brexit supporting newspaper, judging by various articles that it has run throughout this year. Now, this headline sort of leads with the Prime Minister saying that the Brexit deal never made sense, and that he would be telling the EU this. Now, the thing is, he doesn't need to tell the EU this. The EU already know it doesn't make sense. Opponents of Brexit in the UK already know this. People like me were saying a year ago, well, 11 months ago really, just how damaging Johnson's withdrawal agreement would be for us. We don't need telling. It's only Johnson's supporters who need telling. I mean, if we go through some of the comments, what it was quite clear at the time, a year ago, most of us, like, there's a stalwart Brexiteer still knocking about on the channel. So, you know, I've put his comment from 11 months ago in there, noting that, you know, there's this withdrawal agreement. It's not going to be open. In fact, he says his exact words as, "Oh, but the withdrawal agreement can't be reopened. We're leaving. The panic is palpable." Again, the usual thing. This is what Brexit's been for quite a long time now. It's all about, you know, upsetting people. It's nothing about doing what's best for Britain. But the other comments are all perfectly clear. A lot of people that actually were paying attention knew exactly what this withdrawal agreement was. It was an absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You know, the part about putting a hard trade border inside the United Kingdom. You are. I mean, the EU went along with it because it's like, okay, well, yeah, we're fine with that. They just couldn't understand why the UK would be fine with that. Absolute nonsense. So, you know, those paying attention, like I said, on what was at the time the Remain side, knew perfectly well that this was a bad deal. It was the deal that Theresa May rejected as unacceptable, as saying no British Prime Minister could possibly countenance this. But Boris Johnson took it, said he renegotiated it. He didn't. He just pulled it out of the bin, pulled off the banana peel and said, oven-ready Brexit. So the situation really is as follows. So one, we've got Boris Johnson saying that he personally negotiated a great deal for the UK. 2, all of the current Conservative MPs pledged their support for the withdrawal agreement. Every single one of them. Every one of them. Because that was the condition for even being allowed to become a Conservative candidate in December. There are no dissenters on that. And 3, Boris Johnson said that the transition period negotiations would be a breeze because he had an oven-ready deal. Labour would have to negotiate a deal, he said. That's going to drag on. I've got a deal already, oven-ready. Give me a majority and there are no more Brexit negotiations. It's all done. We have the transition period where we sort out the finer details and then that's it. He said in Parliament, there are no plans for no deal because we're going to get a great deal. His exact words. The entire general election campaign was built around this so-called oven-ready deal, this fast track to Brexit. And it's an absolute disgrace that anybody at all in this country should be allowing them to even talk about backing down from that deal. And the complaints about, oh, but it's a bad deal, are worthless for three reasons. One, you were told that. We all told you that a year ago and you denied it. Two, we told you to read the bloody thing for yourselves. You said there was no need. And three, you voted for it. So you have to own your own decisions. You're either a Conservative MP, in which case you literally voted for it in Parliament, or you voted for Conservatives. Now, if you don't have a Conservative MP in your constituency, then okay, your vote didn't actually cause the damage. You can sort of forget about it if you want. But if your vote contributed to that Conservative MP, then you've got to own this decision. And owning that decision doesn't have to mean that, okay, you decided to vote Conservative to get this deal, so you have to stand by it in perpetuity. No, of course not. You can change your mind. You can decide, it was a bit silly of me not to try and fully understand what this deal meant, or to believe Boris Johnson when he was lying. That was a bit silly. I'd like to change my mind. Fine, no problem. So what you do is, in that situation, you demand from your local Conservative MP that they replace the Prime Minister, who has failed to follow through on his election promises and is now threatening to break international law. And that threat, I'm going to come on to this towards the end of the video, is now credible. I thought it might just be, saber-rattling, threatening behaviour that he would ultimately not go through. That's not what someone much closer to him thinks. So, yeah, you put pressure on your MP to get rid of this charlatan in charge. What you don't get to do is to change the entire constitutional framework for the United Kingdom, the whole country, doom us to economic and political humiliation, and then get to complain about the very thing you supported a year ago. You don't get to do that. That is not taking responsibility for your decisions. But all of this is sort of also largely pointless, because there's no handshake with this deal. This withdrawal agreement wasn't done on a handshake. It wasn't a gentleman's agreement. It's an international treaty. It's signed into law by Boris Johnson. If Boris Johnson wants to change any part of it, Westminster is not the place to do so. It's not just domestic law, it's international law. He's going to need to renegotiate it with Brussels, and he's going to need their permission to renegotiate it. They will say no, of course. I mean, I'll refer you to our Brexiteer friend, progressive demagogue, from 11 months ago saying the agreement can't be reopened. But if there ever were a chance of reopening it, and all of these things at some point you do, you don't expect to reopen negotiations on something agreed that year. But if he did want to renegotiate it, I'm not really sure that being rude and threatening towards the EU would be the advice he will have received from seasoned diplomats as to how to persuade the EU to do that. And then, there is the question that needs to be asked by every single journalist to every Conservative MP that they interview over the next few days, but most especially Boris Johnson. If the deal never made any sense, if you're saying that the deal never made sense, why on earth did you support it? And for Boris Johnson, they could say, why on earth did you recommend it to the public, force all Conservative candidates to back it, and then sign it into law? Oh, and like I said towards the end, Johnson's reckless threatening of international law breaking has already seen its first casualty. Final point. Jonathan Jones, who is the head of the UK's legal department. Now, normally when we talk about the legal advice the government get, we would talk about the Attorney General. But the Attorney General is an MP. They have a legal background. They usually have a fairly impressive legal background. But you have to choose the Attorney General from your pool of MPs. So for serious legal advice, expert legal advice, the best you can get, the government has a legal department, of course, of civil servants. And the head of this department, Jonathan Jones, has quit over this. This latest nonsense from the blonde buffoon. He is refusing to go along with the idea of Boris Johnson so openly breaking international law. He's having nothing to do with it. Now that suggests to me that, and in fact, more importantly than me, it suggests to serious legal commentators that the government are about to embark on serious law breaking. Now, when you consider that this government has already engaged in some very iffy things, there's why there's a number of legal challenges taking place. For the head of that department, the government's legal team, to quit over this suggests that it suggests the scale of the law breaking, but also the seriousness with which Jonathan Jones believes that Boris Johnson is applying to this. And someone noted, David Alan Green, I've talked about before, a very seasoned legal commentator, noted that the last time this happened was in 2003. Now, there will be some people who know exactly what happened in 2003. So the most senior legal advisor in the civil service at the time also quit because they were not entirely happy that the then Labour government's approach to the Iraq invasion was entirely legal. Now, as it was then, the resignation came because of the belief that the government was intending to break international law. Now, on this occasion, unlike on that occasion, this one may move beyond speculation, where we can go, did they, didn't they? Because this one could end up in an international court where it will be decided once and for all. But anyway, those are my thoughts on this latest piece of insanity. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.